Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. Today is the 1st of Muharram of the new Hijri year of 1444. So I wish you all a blessed, Mubarak New Year, full of Allah's rahmah, mawadda and hidayah, His love and care and guidance. The year 1444 is, inshallah, there are many things we anticipate for this year, and we ask Allah that He will bless us with their fulfillment. I wanted to continue with some aspects of what I touched upon in a few other foundations talks, and speak to you more about the importance, the essential, critical importance of cultivating your heart intellect. I might have mentioned it before that we focus in the science of Ihsan on developing the intellect of the heart. All of us, especially who have been who are products of Western style education, whether you're in the West or not, or in other countries, almost all around the world, unless you were apprenticed in youth to a tradesperson or lived in a monastery or something, very rare these days. Most of us are the products of a Western style education. In this education, by Allah's choosing, we are greatly empowered and enriched by the cultivation of the brain. Our brain, our cognitive processes are highly trained, enhanced, cultivated. Especially in the post-World War II education system, there is even more emphasis on, and I would say not even then, I think post-1980s, 90s, 2000s, it's just getting more and more an emphasis on cultivating the, let's say, the technical side of your brain. You have the left and the right hemisphere. I forget which is which, but nowadays our education system overemphasizes technical mastery. About 100 years ago, even the Western education didn't do this so much. It emphasized cultivating the arts and the humanities. For example, here in Canada, if you wanted to become a doctor in 1920, first you had to do an undergraduate degree, which is mostly based on the humanities. You'd read Greek, Latin, you'd read philosophy, you read the classics. So they cultivate you as an individual first. Then you enter a 4-year undergraduate medical degree. Nowadays, we still have this system of a 4-year undergraduate medical degree, and you can only enter it after you have a 4-year, another degree. But nowadays, instead of going through the arts, most pre-med courses are also focused on the sciences, on biology and mathematics and chemistry and so forth. So the idea of graduating rounded human beings who have balanced arts, humanities and sciences is gradually being eroded as there is more and more competition, and it's harder and harder to find jobs and places, and the level of technical knowledge each of us has to grasp in order to be employable, it becomes more and more. So these are all natural processes as our population expands. Nevertheless, it has caused a huge detriment to us as a species. Most human beings today, I find, especially they are very easily disturbed from their core. And what do I mean by that? I mean, agitation is becoming more preponderant. We are less and less able to connect to core truths as we are faced with challenges and difficulties in our lives. This is because we are not able to connect to the heart. Now, I mentioned how our education is now, even the training of the brain is highly biased towards the technical. In the old days, the training of the brain was not biased, it was more balanced. So you have the humanities and the arts as much as the technical expertise. So people who have that, who have a deep understanding of poetry, of literature, they cultivate the imagination. The imagination is a very powerful entity. The imagination is what allows even your brain intellect to start exploring creation in a way that the technical side of your brain cannot. Why? Because the technical side of your brain is limited by tools of measurement. It needs to grasp things, it needs to count and calculate and deduce and reason. The imagination side of your brain is not constrained by these limits. It's a free spirit, to use that term. It can fly. So I think there are some very recent studies being published showing that education is skewed, and therefore people are losing their resilience, they're losing their connection to their core, they're forgetting what it is to be human. We are becoming very robotic. Now, in the science of Ihsan, from the Islamic standpoint, we understand and accept and appreciate the cultivation of imagination, but our science is very sophisticated, very in-depth, very vast, and we focus on something called the heart-intellect. Now, what do we mean by that? That is something I think unique to Islamic spirituality. I haven't seen it so focused upon in other spiritual traditions. From my limited reading of the Vedas and the philosophy of Buddhism, even the Christian mysticism, I have only read a very little of it. The Jewish Kabbalah I have not read at all. But many of these other traditions, and they all come from, we believe, the same source. So we have no problem with accepting truths from various traditions. In fact, we are enriched by it. But they don't have a deep understanding of the place of the heart in terms of the psyche. The Muslim tradition, we are very blessed. It's the freshest form of inspired or revealed knowledge, right? So what is freshest is least likely to be spoilt or corrupt. If you're plucking fruit, the fresher it is, the better it is. In science, we call this low-hanging fruit sometimes. The easiest knowledge you can grasp. So Islam is, in that sense, low-hanging fruit because it's very recent and it is very well preserved. That is the miracle of Islam, the miracle of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it is a miracle. Any of you who have to study any type of history will understand this. It is very hard to preserve a text. The miracle of Muhammad is the Quran, not just because it's preserved, but when you go into it in depth, there is so much there, subhanAllah, that proves again and again that it's a miracle. In fact, if you study poetry of the Jahiliyyah period, which is what you have to do when you want to study classical Arabic, you understand immediately how the Arabs of those days understood the Quran was not from this world. Because the Jahili poetry, it's very, very beautiful, because Arabic reached its pinnacle in the 7th century. The Quran is otherworldly. It is out of this world. Its style and its nuance and its use of language and even its mathematical precision, which we are now able to understand better with our modern ways of analyzing the Quran, otherworldly. So we are very fortunate in our science of Ihsan that we understand the centrality of the heart. Now, how does the heart intellect connect to the brain intellect and the faculty of imagination and the psyche? These are very deep topics, very advanced topics. Those of you who study with me, inshallah, we can go into that in depth. You require a lot of reading. I will not try to summarize it here. Maybe other people might have done a better job. But I want to talk about the Ruh-Qalb-Aql-Jism, this axis that is in every human being. The body, the jism, the aql, the intellect, mostly meaning the brain, the qalb, the heart, and the ruh, the spirit or the soul. Many people struggle with distinguishing the ruh from the qalb. I say, if you equate your spiritual heart to your physical heart, and there is a correspondence, because when your heart intellect starts working, you'll actually find your physical heart will start hurting. You know, sometimes when your brain intellect works a lot, those of you who are studying for exams, you get headaches, the brain is tired. Similarly, when you start using your heart intellect, this is in advanced forms of Ihsan, you will find sometimes your chest actually hurts. There's a constriction. It feels like it's being squeezed. Sometimes you feel an enormous expansion, like you can hold the whole solar system inside you. Those of you who have experienced this know what I'm talking about. Those of you who have not, I have no other way of explaining it. You have to taste it. And this is why Musa alayhi salam said in the dua, Surah Taha, Rabbi shrah li sadri. Oh Allah, expand my chest for me. He understood what this means, because your heart intellect is working. It's very interesting. Very recently, in the past 10-15 years, we've also found out that the heart, the cardiac tissue, has neuronal tissue there, right? So there are actual neurons. There's neuronal tissue in the heart. So the idea of a heart intellect, which our teachers of Ihsan have been teaching us for 12, 13, 1400 years, they were right. Though modern science, we still cannot fully dissect what it means. So we have the body, we have the aql, the brain intellect, we have the qalb, the heart intellect, and we have the ruh, the spirit. The ruh, I say the seat of the ruh is the lungs. I like to use that metaphor, because the ruh is like the air that comes in and goes out of you. It is your breath, which is why in all the teachings of Ihsan we focus on breathing. Control your breath, learn to breathe deeply. Allah, it must go. And your heartbeat will follow the rhythm of the breath, in and out, constriction, expansion. And interestingly, the blood is purified by the oxygen in the lungs. So the ruh purifies the heart. Then that blood is pumped in two major directions, one to the aql, to the brain, the rest to the rest of your body. Those of you who know anatomy, biology know what I mean, right? So this is the structure in your body, your anatomy, mirrors or corresponds to the teachings in Ihsan of the spiritual organization of the human being, and how that organization relates to the organization of the cosmos. Now, this knowledge, which unfortunately I can't go a lot into detail in this medium. This used to be basic knowledge. This used to be like what all of us would learn at high school before colonialism in the Muslim world. So therefore, when you reach your adulthood or adolescence or your 20s, your 30s, you can build on this. You have the right foundation, you build and you build and you build. So your life experiences, what you go through, you keep expanding and expanding and expanding until perhaps you will reach that state when you can look inside you, you see the whole solar system there, sometimes more than that. Then you understand how your ruh, which is very powerful, can traverse multiple dimensions, right? This is a known fact, experienced by all the spiritual masters in all the traditions. It is not unique to Islam. However, I believe the Islamic methodology, the methodology in the science of Ihsan, is the easiest, the quickest, and the most potent. Now, by ignoring all of this, what happens is our heart, most of us, we might have a highly developed brain, but our heart is at the level of a toddler or an infant. The heart intellect is not cultivated, not grown, not trained at all. And it has to train, right? You can't suddenly, like if you expose a 5-year-old to Einstein's theory of relativism and say you have to write an exam on it, that poor child will go insane, right? You will fry his brain. The same way, you cannot take someone who has a heart of a 5-year-old, a spiritual heart, and expose them to very high orders of a spiritual experience. They will lose their balance. They can become what we call majdub. This is why the teachers of Ihsan, we say we go gradually, right? Slowly, slowly. But how do you train your heart intellect? That's a very important question. What do? You have to purify and purify and purify your heart. Because the purer it is, the training comes from Allah. Right? The training comes from Allah. Because this is the emptiness, the poverty modern people are facing. They are very rich in material substance, in even intellectual thought, in output of the brain, but their heart is not nourished from heaven. How do you nourish your heart from heaven? You must clean it of whatever is there from this world, because Allah is always teaching, always, da'iman abadan. This is because Allah is Al-Karim. He is generous. He is not like you and me generous. We can be generous for a few hours and then we can't. Allah is da'iman abadan, teaching, sending. We are unable to grasp, take in, hold. Even if we hold it, it's gone, because we are not training our heart. So how do you train? You teach, you train with dhikr of Allah. This is why dhikr in the Quran, dhikran kathiran. Dhikran kathiran. In the morning and in the evening, waking and sleeping. Even in your sleeping, your heart must be in dhikr of Allah. This is the way the heart of Muhammad was, the heart of the Khulafa al-Rashideen, the heart of the Salafiyah, the real Salafiyah. Always in dhikr of Allah, always. So they are always connected and they are always training that heart so it expands and expands and expands and expands. The more time you spend on earth, the more it will grow. Now, how does that connect to the ruh? Well, when the heart is strong, the heart is the interface between the ruh and the aql and the jism. The ruh is able to, like I said, as-salatu mi'rajul mu'min. Your ruh can go to heaven and come back in your prayer. It should. You should make that a goal in your life. Try to make, these are good goals to have in your life. Before I die, in my prayer, I want to experience what it is like for my ruh to go to heaven and come back. That is a worthwhile goal. That goal will take you on Yawmul Qiyamah very far, more than other dunya goals. Your dunya goal should be a means for you to attain akhirah goals. Otherwise, you have to reevaluate your goals and ambitions and dreams. Now, so when your ruh is free, it will travel. Uh, but it is the heart that is the interface between this ruh and your worldly, corporeal body. Just like in your anatomy, the heart, the lungs, and the blood system, how this moves, right? Remember that diagram. I hope most of you are science, have a science background. I think this is high school anatomy. Heart, blood goes to lungs, gets purified, full of oxygen, comes back to heart, pumps both directions to the brain, rest of the body, uses up all the oxygen, comes back to the heart, pumps to the lungs. So, subhanallah, you are always being renewed by that oxygen, from heaven. You need that. You need that in this modern world. You need it. I have seen so many people in so many countries in my travels and wherever I've lived, so many cultures. They are starving. They're starving. Not with food they have in abundance, but their heart. Subhanallah, even if they have the air and the oxygen, the heart oxygen, the heart intellect. It's very sad, and it is everywhere. Like your air is everywhere to breathe, but you can't. You have not opened the way to take it in. So begin your dhikr. Do not waste your time. Time is the one thing you will never get back in your life. So don't waste it. Subhanallah. And if you are such a person who is so unfortunate, to give an example, like I talk about breathing, if you're living in a city that is so polluted, you go outside, you can't breathe. Nowadays we see that. 20 years ago, unheard of. You could never imagine such a calamity when I was in my 20s. Now there are whole cities where people have to put masks on and go outside. So in the same way, if your heart, you're doing your dhikr and nothing is opening for you, there's nothing coming in, change your location. The air around you is bad. The air around you is full of smog and smoke. That's what it means. So this type of knowledge is essential knowledge. You need to know. If you don't know, go and find somebody and start learning. I can only tell you, it is up to you to do. Because believe me, like in any illness, any situation, there is always a threshold. That when you pass that threshold, you can't help yourself. Don't let that happen. Before you get to that threshold, find someone who will teach you, because trust me, if your yearning is sincere and you want to learn, not to satisfy your ego, not to be somebody who wants to find fault. I'm going to learn about this so I can beat it down and hammer it out and say it's wrong. Nobody is going to teach you. They won't waste their time on you. Spiritual masters, they can see that in your heart. When you go to them, they're like, why should I waste my time? But if you are sincere and you really want to learn, maybe then Allah will take you to the right person. Because most people I have met, they are not happy. They are not satisfied. They have no contentment. The more they achieve, the more they want to achieve. The more they push themselves, the more they want to push themselves. Where are you pushing yourself to? Subhanallah. That's the first thing. So you need to learn about this axis. Qalb, Ruh, Aql, Jism. Second thing, the Aql, the brain intellect, is not created to understand what goes on in the Malakut and the Izzat and the Jabarut and the other dimensions. It cannot. The brain is not created for that purpose. Similarly, like your ear is not created to see. Your eye sees, your ear hears. Allah puts purpose in how He creates, and He explains all of this in the Quran. He gives so many meanings for the heart. He says, Fu'ad, Sadr, Qalb. Pay attention to where He uses these words in the Quran. So this is the science of Ihsan. It is not something people have brought up when they are sitting in a trance. It's based on incredibly dedicated study of the Quran and Allah's gift. He opens to you meanings. So the brain cannot understand. It is not created to grasp concepts that are beyond the known universe. Which is why you need your heart intellect to start working, because the heart intellect can. The heart intellect can. The heart intellect does not understand, well, the language of the heart does not translate very well to human language that we speak. This is why most people say there are whole openings that happen in an instant when you look into somebody's heart. Maybe some of you have experienced this. You might meet a stranger somewhere, or you might be sitting with a loved one. In an instant, there is a connection. Enormous information and knowledge is shared. I think all of you have experienced that. You can't define it. Language is not adequate. The human language now is very weak, very limited, especially now. I mean, even Quranic Arabic is such a powerful language, but even more than that, the language of Adam alayhis salam, Suryani, could explain so much. That Arabic now that we have, even that is more limited, and language is getting even more limited. Nowadays, you know how we text. But the heart language is a different language. Especially those of you who have fallen in love, those of you who have lost somebody you love. In an instant, you will understand so much about creation. Yes, I don't need confirmation. I know it's true. So this is the heart intellect. How do you translate that into what takes your ruh to heaven? This is the science of ihsan. Start learning. And before, this is colonialism has robbed us. We don't even know what it has robbed us of. Before this, there were always people in a community. The community made sure there was at least one person, if not more, who had such a high level of their heart intellect cultivated, their ruh very powerful, that at least their presence, even if the people can't grasp what they're saying and cannot attain to that, their presence will bless them. So modern example, I think I mentioned it in another talk, very poor villagers. I remember, this is a real life example. The villagers realized they didn't have a doctor, so they all got together and made a scholarship fund, picked the brightest boy, at that time only boys go to school, and sent him off abroad. Say, become a doctor, come back. So your being here in the village will help us, see. So this is wisdom in a community. So in the old Muslim world, we had all of that, but we realized we need people who have a connection to the heaven. Their ruh and their heart very strong. That will bless the community, right? So all this, unfortunately, nowadays, very rare to find. Very, very rare to find communities like that. If you came from such a background, in your ancestors, maybe your grandparents, great-grandparents, some of you might be very old, older than me, listening to this. Maybe you had it, or your parents' generation had it. You will realize those communities had enormous inner strength, enormous inner strength. They were not dazzled by the world. They did not seek their achievements in worldly means. They sought their achievement in what their heart was experiencing, where their ruh was traveling. So who knows what they were seeing and experiencing, the riches inside them. So sometimes these glimmers of these riches come to us in the form of poetry. Because like I said, you can't speak about it. So some people use poetry, some people use song, some people use art to explain what language, normal language, cannot. Especially in the Muslim world, we saw this a lot in the geometric art in the old mosques. This is from an inspired heart. So these things I wanted to say. The other thing I wanted to raise, and it's a controversial topic, but it's a reason I find most people are being befuddled, is the place of dreams in being inspired. One of the biggest contentions is whether dreams have validity as a means of attaining knowledge. And in our tradition, from our history and the Quranic example, they do. They do. So there's a debate, let's say a respectful debate in the Muslim world as to whether people can dream and in their dreams attain certain states and whether they have validity in the Sunnah. For example, some of the most famous adhkar that we have now abandoned, most Muslims have abandoned, were written in states of dreams. It's like Qasida Burda, for example, written completely in a dream by Imam Busiri. In that dream, he saw Rasulullah والسلام, and he sang this qasida to him والسلام. And when he woke up, Rasulullah liked it so much, he put his cloak on him. This Imam was paralyzed. He woke up, he was cured, subhanallah. So he wrote the entire qasida, and that is Qasidatul Burda. We still sing it for people who are sick. Some Muslims, they will reject this and say it has no place because it came in a dream. But nowhere in the Sunnah of Muhammad والسلام, do you see a rejection of inspiration that comes in dreams. The Quran famously, Surah Yusuf, talks about Yusuf salam being given the gift of dream interpreting, and the dreams that came, the dream came to the king and the fellow prisoner. Remember, they were not Muslim even. They were not believers of one God, right? There's no Islam at that time. So these dreams come to everybody, because do not be a person who, don't be so bold as to limit Allah's rahmah from other people. Allah's rahmah is for everybody, regardless of religion, creed, race, how great a sinner. Allah's rahmah is for everyone. Don't you limit Allah's rahmah upon anybody. Maybe Allah might limit his rahmah upon you. Be careful. So, dreams there in Surah Yusuf came for the king and came for this prisoner. And Yusuf alayhi salam was given the gift by Allah to explain them. So the idea that Allah's direction comes through a dream is a valid one. That's one Quranic example. There may be others. Example from the Sunnah. The obvious example is the Adhan, right? The Azan, when in the Medinan period, when they were getting together to establish the mosque, they were actually having shura, having a discussion. How do we call the people to pray? How do we announce the time of prayer? Rasulullah والسلام, and his closest companions, they were all discussing, should we have bells like the Christians? Should we blow a horn like the Jews? What should we do? They had no answer. Two of the companions والسلام, the next day, Sayyidina Umar, I believe, was one. I can't remember who the other one was. They both came to Rasulullah والسلام, said, I had a dream, and in this dream I heard this, and they recited. And when once finished, subhanallah, the other Sahaba said, I had the exact same dream. So the adhan we hear 5 times a day, and which is such a central part of our deen, came in a dream and didn't come to Rasulullah والسلام, came to his companions. So why then do we discount what Allah can send? Because Rasulullah والسلام, didn't say, oh, it's a dream, it's not wahi, we can't use it. No, he knew immediately. This is a sign from Allah. In fact, in communities of old, people knew Allah sends messages through dreams, because the dreams, when you learn ihsan, you know your ruh is going to, usually in the malakut, sometimes higher than that. The ruh travels, right? When you're sleeping, it's the small death. When you wake, it comes back. If you don't wake, the ruh is free. So alhamdulillah. So the science of Ihsan, people know what has the Ruh learned that we should know. In fact, in communities, Rasulullah ﷺ used to do this too. After Fajr, he would ask anyone, has anyone had a dream? Tell me. He will use that to guide the community, right? And this used to be the practice of traditional communities, subhanallah. Even in my own training, I have had the great barakah to sit in communities like this. We all gather after Fajr, and the Imam asks and we tell, and all of us learn from each other's dreams. But that is a safe space with the right teacher, right? With the presence of an Imam who is a master of Ihsan, so it's safe. Otherwise, you should be very careful who you reveal your dreams to. Don't reveal them unless it is to someone who has that authority in the science of Ihsan to explain it to you. So be very careful before you reject anything from our tradition. You may be rejecting exactly what your Ruh needs and your heart needs. Because most people I have seen, they are in such pain. Because their Ruh is like a trapped bird in a cage. It can't go anywhere because the heart does. The heart doesn't know how to open the door. The heart itself is like a starved child who's chained. And the Aql thinks it knows everything and it's ruling this body, but the Aql has no idea, very little understanding of what it cannot grasp, because the Aql is ruled by the five senses, your eyes, ears, nose, taste, the five senses. As you all know, when your Ruh moves into the Malakut, these senses don't work in the same way that your brain is used to. They work in different ways. That's enough from me. May Allah reward you all and protect you and forgive all our sins. But be careful. Be careful before you reject what has come down to you in our tradition. And may you have the sincerity. If you have a problem with anything, just find out sincerely. Not to break things and prove you're right, but to get to know the truth. It's a beautiful journey. It's such a rewarding journey, subhanallah. This is what I did. Even if some things took me 20 years, some things I still haven't grasped fully. Some things come, mashallah, very quickly. But sincerity and truthfulness. If you really want to know the truth, you have to spend the time and the energy and the effort and be humble and sincere in your searching. Don't expect it to come to you easily. Sometimes, subhanallah, in Allah's generosity, He gives it to you like fruit on a platter put in front of you. Most of us don't recognize it. We say, what is this? Throw it away. Then it may never come back again. So be humble. Don't rush into anything. Always think twice. Make your niyyah, purify your heart, center yourself, connect your heart with Allah. Get this axis right. Ruh, Qalb, Aql, Jism. It has to work. All these must work for you in the right way. Then, subhanallah, your life here in dunya is very, very profound. Maybe hard, maybe easy, but profound. It's a life of truth. It is always an ascent to Allah, no matter what you face. Right? So I wish you a life like that, a life of truth and sincerity. Die happily, live happily. Don't die in vain and live in vain. Subhanallah, that's all I have to say on this first day of Muharram, 1444. I hope these words help you and do not hinder you, and I hope may Allah take you to your destiny quickly and easily, and may your destiny be something most pleasing to Allah in this world and the hereafter. And likewise for myself, I ask you to pray for me. May Allah forgive my sins and all of yours. And we are all one family, so we must help and support and strengthen each other. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Sayyidina Habibina wa Shafi'ina wa Maulana Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim tasliman kathira. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.